So right now, lots of businesses out there, I need an AI strategy. What am I going to do in AI? And they are very quickly rushing to implement things without thinking about the systems that need to fit around them and what the ultimate return on investment is likely to be. So we are so rushing to implement technology, we're forgetting about the use cases and how it's going to enhance society, business, and life.
Welcome to How I AI, the podcast featuring real people, real stories, and real AI in action. I'm Bryan Reimer, your host and guide on this journey into the real-world impact of artificial intelligence. For over 15 years, I've worked in creative marketing, events, and business strategy, wearing all the hats. I know the struggle of trying to scale and manage all things without burning out. But here's the game changer, AI. This isn't just a podcast. How I AI is a community, a space where curious minds like you come together, share ideas, and I'll also bring you exclusive discounts and insider resources because AI isn't just a trend, it's a shift. And the sooner we embrace it, the more freedom, creativity, and opportunities we'll unlock. Today's episode is a powerful one. I'm sitting down with Dr. Bryan Reimer, a research scientist at the MIT Center of Transportation and Logistics, and someone who has spent more than 20 years studying the intersection of AI, human behavior, mobility, and public policy. What I love about Bryan's work is that he doesn't get lost in the hype. He's focused on the simple but essential question, is this technology actually useful? And if it is, how do we make sure it truly supports people instead of overwhelming us? In our conversation, we talk about why so many companies still rush into AI without thinking about the human side, why trust and transparency matter more than ever, and how automation can both help and accidentally hurt us if we're not intentional. Bryan breaks down how humans adapt at a much slower pace than the tools we are building, and why the future will be shaped by those who use AI thoughtfully, not perfectly. If you're curious about where AI is really heading and how to stay grounded as everything accelerates, this is a conversation you'll want to hear. All right, let's get into it. Well, welcome, Bryan. It's so exciting to have you here today.
Happy to be here, Brooke.
I love to always kick off my podcasts and give you the floor to share all about yourself and how you ended up in the intersection of AI where you are today.
So I've been leading research at MIT for a little over 2 decades, focused at the intersection of human behavior, technology, and public policy, and really interested in how we can reshape mobility and AI to improve life, work, and play. My work really focuses on the human element of systems. So really interested in how we connect with all this. So much of our time is spent building new technology, thinking about new toys and gee whiz. But the ultimate question is it useful? Do I integrate into that? Do I leverage that? Does it actually get used in the way the design team ever envisioned? In many technologies, the designers hit the mark. In other technologies, we use things well beyond in their expectations, many times for the better, sometimes for the worse. But ultimately, as a society, we need to integrate us as humans more effectively, thinking about really the intersection of how we amplify human expertise as opposed to how do we replace it. And that's where my foray into AI really has begun over the last several years. AI to support and augment human behavior as opposed to general AI to really replace us.
Beautiful. That really sets the scene for so many places that we can go in our conversation today. Right off the bat, I love that you brought up the topic of play and how important it is to really still make this fun for us as we're building and creating. And I read a statistic the other day, I can't recall, but it was just sharing about the percentage of companies or softwares that are being built in this time and which ones are actually successful and make it past year 1 or year 2. And it was very low.
Yeah.
So I think it's a really important topic that you're diving into. What makes AI useful? Is it really beneficial? But would love to just bring it back to when was the first initial moment that you started getting into AI and using it for your work?
So my doctoral work way back 25 years ago, I did a whole bunch of coursework in artificial intelligence and used what we would think of as antique frameworks today in problems I was trying to solve that were not really solvable back then. So my experience with AI really stems back about 25 years. And it has always been a growing set of capabilities, tools, and approaches that have gained social relevance over time. And I think it's social relevance because at the end of the day, they're enabling the toys that we're playing with, whether that's our smartphones or our computers or cars. And we have just the tip of the iceberg of what machine intelligence can do to amplify human behavior. But all along the way, I've witnessed too many folks focused on, I need to do this and I need to algorithmically improve things to do this, and no deep appreciation for the human's role in the system. And part of that is we love the touch and feel of technology. And when we build something, we take it to our executives, they can feel it, they can touch it. Will people use it? Well, of course they will. In reality, maybe not. So I think when you look at all the investment in AI and technology right now, it is such a technology-first mindset as opposed to a consumer-first mindset. And I'm not saying they don't overlap in a lot of cases, they do. But if you come through the mindset of what the consumer is likely to do, that helps shape the technology to be much more successful. So right now, lots of businesses out there, I need an AI strategy. What am I going to do in AI? And they are very quickly rushing to implement things without thinking about the systems that need to fit around them and what the ultimate return investment is likely to be. So we are so rushing to implement technology, we're forgetting about the use cases and how it's going to enhance society, business, and life.
That's such a valid point. There's a funny meme going around the internet, and it was, corporate executives and CEOs saying, what do we want? AI. When do we want it now? And what do we need it for? We don't know.
Well, Wall Street rewards organizations with a good AI automation strategy. I mean, look, automated driving is a topic I've spent nearly a decade focused on. It's back in vogue now. And part of that is it's not any closer this year than it was last year to a real sustainable business, but Wall Street rewarded an automation strategy. So, from an executives, we need it now. I don't think that helps the consumer long-term adapt to these technologies and build a needed trust to evolve. It just sets us up for another failure of we can't succeed.
So bring me to that consumer first mindset. How do you get in the mind of your consumer?
So I think a lot comes from watching. I used to tell people, and it's still absolutely true today, is that, go out to the street corner and watch how people behave. You'll learn an enormous amount in a few minutes. Go out and sit in the park, watch, pay attention. The average Joe, as you might call it, is not the same as you and I. They're different. We're all different. We're all very individual. Yeah. So, we can learn a lot by watching. I've spent, the best part of my career watching what people do in cars. What do you learn from that is that you learn people do a lot of what we know they shouldn't do. And we tell them we shouldn't do it. They do it anyway. They behave in ways that they're in the little cocoons, believing we're safe, believing we can get away with doing things that are a little above and beyond the law, because we're protected in some way. But understanding that also tells us that we need to rethink about how we're motivating people to do the right thing. Humans really don't like to be told what to do. Many of us really hate it. But we can be supported to move where we need to be moved in much more soft ways, or ways that we could incorporate designs that help us move towards much more strategic frameworks over time.
I think that's so fascinating, the point you made about how we're all unique and different. And I think that that's one of the biggest benefits of AI. And even from a marketing standpoint, you can really personalize and target. I've heard it everywhere from course creators to offering a choose your own journey experience, and everything being hyper targeted and personalized, which is really cool to see.
And Brooke, I don't think it has to be perfect. I think that's the part that a lot of people are focused. It's got to be a perfect personalized journey. You know what? I think we have a lot of time to play with here, that if it's just a little more of something, it's a little more enjoyable to me. That's a lot better than the vanilla answer I had before. So, I'm okay with 2 or 3 different flavors of ice cream to choose from. That's better than being force-fed the vanilla before.
So I'd love to get into your day-to-day using AI, and you're a founder, you're an author. How are you using it to support yourself, either from your day to day to a business advantage? I'd love to get into your
So
operations.
I am a ChatGPT user, and I believe in using ChatGPT extensively as a firm member of the communications team. It helps refine, hone text, provide opinions on the flow of things that I'm not saying it's better or worse than a human. I mean, it is a machine. I definitely trust colleagues to a greater degree, but colleagues aren't awake at 11 o'clock at night looking to provide you instantaneous feedback. So when you go out to a colleague for feedback, I'm going out now with something much closer to a finished product. So, once in a while you'll use the tools for ideation, but I'm a real believer in writing what I want to write and in helping that core member of my communications team hone that. And the suggested language changes have a tendency to be really good because you can give it the audience you're looking for, and it'll take the frame and tone of that and shift it around, no difference than you would have written it, send it to your comms team before and said, I'm writing for XYZ. Can you help me hone this? I also find it helps interpret communication that is really difficult to read. So, we all get a lot of work slop, whether that's machine generated or human generated. I unfortunately get more human generated work slop than I do machine generated at times. Folks that send something back that made complete sense to them, but in reality doesn't make clear sense to me, trying to figure out that nuance of what they're trying to say. Hey, I have an interpreter. Even though it's in English, I still need an interpreter. Hey, okay, now I see how they were getting from point A to point B in 20 pages of text. And I think there's a huge ability to help us make sense. Very much as a copilot, not an autopilot. Using it to assist decision making, augment my capabilities, and move faster and share things further than one would ever beforehand.
I agree. One of the ways I use ChatGPT as well is interpreting conversations because so many things can be lost in the message, and just having a second pair of eyes and asking, what is this person really trying to say, and read in between the lines. I find it very useful as well.
Yeah. And Brooke, I think that's what's key to me is one of my talking points in this. It's an opinion, no different than you or I. It's an electronic opinion. Now, I know of a lot of folks who are resistant to this change. And I think they are and will continue to be left in the dust in their speed in which they can hone, make decisions, and fortify information. I think the best way to me to think about it, it's, you're willing to use spell check or you're not. But this is the modern spell check.
Yes, I compare it to if you let your camera in your car assist you with reversing, then you should have no reservations to using AI.
Yeah. And remember, that camera is an assistance technology, not a replacement technology. Many of us have gotten awful lazy and don't turn around to look behind us. But at the end of the day, the backup camera was built as an assistant technology to scan and say, oh, is there something over there? Not to replace. Too many people are staring at the technology and trusting the very narrow view that it provides.
Yeah. So speaking more about human behavior, and you've done so much research on this topic, and one thing you said on our intro call was that humans aren't going to be able to adapt as fast as this technology is coming through right now. And so what do we really need to understand about human behavior as this AI is truly accelerating?
Yeah, and I think that's a really good question, Brooke. I think that, humans adapt fairly slowly, although we may tag on to technologies like the iPhone seemingly overnight. The predecessors to that and the fundamentals for that were already there in the iPod and the BlackBerry. I mean, it was really the touchscreen, the interaction that all of a sudden made this useful to many of us beyond the smart cell phones at the time. So very few technologies are going to have that kind of explosion out there. We move much slower. We build trust over time, and that's eroded quickly. So when we look to all of this technology coming forward, I think transparency and trust, two of the fundamental core components that developers, designers, and marketers need to be thinking about. We need to trust what we're doing. If we don't, we're not likely to spend our money on it, not likely to submit our private information, not likely to leverage it, et cetera. And trust is best built to me with transparency. I may not like what you're doing with my data, but at least you're being honest with me. And you're telling me why the use of the data can augment, help, enhance, et cetera. So I think that we need to be focused on responsible use of AI, which is really keyed into trust and transparency. What's core is that the machine intelligence, the AI, the technology is going to continue to move faster and faster. As I heard someone say the other day, Moore's law is fundamentally obsolete at this point. The growth of these tools and what AI and other related technologies are going to create is almost mind-blowing. Our ability to harness that, unless you're working with it full time, and even if you are working with it full time, it's still going to surpass your capabilities to keep track with. So, as older individuals and in our mid-career, we need more time to play. And when I say play is because that's the experimentation where we feel uninhibited and we can learn more effectively. When we're, given guardrails, we're not really learning, we're learning within a box. And I think a lot of these tools, especially where we are today, it's about learning how they can augment my workflow, support me to be better, and improve my ability to accelerate at scale.
You just shared a bit about transparency and data quality. What other challenges might be showing up during this time? How can we really bridge this gap between capability and actual usefulness?
Yeah, that's a big one. So the capabilities are there. Usefulness is if I can harness those capabilities to actually do something of value. We can create a hugely capable tool, incredible capabilities to do X, Y, Z, but if no one touches it, it's not useful to anybody. So that's taking and moving this capability into something that can enhance my life or society at large. Just a piece of technology that's created to do something interesting doesn't necessarily make it useful to society at large. When we think forward here to the seamless integration of this technology as part of life, that's where the risk flags go up for a lot. Governments sit to prevent risk. It's easier to say no than it is to say yes. In ways, we need guardrails to protect our privacy, cybersecurity, our competitive advantages globally. Geopolitical risks are real. So we do need some guardrails, but we need to be thinking very wisely of how do you build those guardrails, but while allowing the technology to evolve and the utility of that technology to creep up over time.
If you're tuning into this podcast, you're most likely an AI advocate, and you may have also wondered how to support your body against the invisible stress of EMFs. Think Wi-Fi, cell towers, or hours in front of your laptop. Leela Quantum products are lab-tested in triple-blind studies and are proven to help harmonize and neutralize EMF signals. Their products are the few things I felt a real energetic shift from. I personally wear their Quantum Energy necklace daily. And if you're someone who cares about optimizing your energy and nervous system like I do, explore their offers with my exclusive discount link below. How are you seeing people around you in your community, students, policymakers, really shifting their mindset as AI becomes more embedded in all of our systems and workflows? Like, how have you seen this play out in your unique community?
Yeah, and Brooke, that's a great question as well. I think it's very individual. I see a bunch of folks who, I'm not touching this stuff. I want nothing to do with it. It's too risky. It might take my information. Okay, I see a lot of other people saying, that's interesting. I'm not using it a whole lot, but clearly I need to be. I just haven't put the time in there. And I see a number of folks using it, accelerating and moving faster beyond the folks who are dragging their feet. You can see the folks who are honing it. You can also see the folks that are not honing it in blobs that's clearly not even edited. We see it all the time. You look at it and there's telltale signs that this wasn't even edited. Couple words that don't make sense, caricature uses that are telltale signs. This was done on autopilot, not Copilot. We need to be thinking about how business leaders begin to curtail the misuse of these technologies in the organizations and begin to incentivize the accelerated use.
You said something really important just now about incentivizing. OpenAI released its playbook on adopting and integrating into your business. And one thing that they recommended was incentivizing staff and employees to use AI and to weave it into their end of the year or 6-month review. And I thought that was a very fascinating shift of how to get your employees more engaged into trial and error and exploring AI within their business.
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously, the folks at OpenAI have a business incentive for increasing usage, no question about that. But I do think that organizations, look, the high flyers are using this and accelerating, moving really quickly. But how do you take the laggers and accelerate them a little bit? They're going to sit back a couple of years from now and wonder why the world has moved beyond them, and catching up later on is going to be even harder.
Yes, absolutely. There's just going to be a greater divide
Yep.
if you aren't integrating and adapting. So let's get into a fun portion of the interview where I ask each guest to put on their unique creative hat. And if you were to wave a magic wand and create a new AI app or system really targeted on your unique use case of problems, what would it be?
I want AI searching my inbox more effectively.
Ah.
Quite frankly, whether it's the integration of thoughts from one sender or finding information, we do not have any Copilot integration into our inboxes at this point. And oh my God, that is what I need. And I don't need it as an add-on. I need it direct integration to extract meaning from 50,000 emails that are sitting in there, or maybe more at this point. I lose track. And then go through and say, okay, I need a summary of what I've conversed with this individual over the last year with. My God, I'm willing to give away that. I need a little protection. It's not going to be used and disclosed, but that is the tool I need today. And obviously, I work at MIT where my inbox is governed by corporate policy to some degree. So even tools that exist out there, I don't have at this point.
You bring up an important topic of you have 50,000 emails right now to go through.
I'm going to go look what's in here right now. No, it's 100,000. And that's just the inbox.
Wow.
That doesn't include the rest of it.
Now that we have AI, I spend multiple times a week unsubscribing from emails. I don't know why everyone feels like they need to be sending more emails. I understand there is a lot of revenue to be made from email, but I'm all about quality over quantity. Nobody wants to get an email from a brand or a business every single day. And we're getting bombarded now with text messages, phone calls, emails. And we're going to need AIs just to be responding to the AIs because it's just going to get overwhelming. So what do you see coming through in the next year? What's next for human-machine interaction? What's coming through in your radar?
Well, I think that there are two pieces to this. One, you're going to see the integration of chatbots, which is just the current modern rendition of advanced AI. The algorithmic side of this is moving forward in many different directions, automating things in different ways. But the chatbots we're using are going to become much more integrated into many of our lives. I think we are going to see a bifurcation of society into three pieces. I think we are going to see a segment of society over the next year that is going to embrace the power of large language models and chatbots and be accelerating innovation forward even faster. You're going to see a few individuals who are using these tools moderately successful, but not invested deep enough to really thinking about how do they help really support and accelerate human capabilities. And then a few folks who are not using them at all. I think we're going to see a whole new set of devices created a little further out. And whether this is a smartphone on steroids with a smaller screen, bigger screen, or devices without screens, things that are integrating automation and AI into our lives in new and unique ways, and an explosion of new personal electronics that aren't even in the drawing board yet. Why? Because we can begin to do things instead of tying my life to a little keyboard and a little screen. I would be able to tie myself to a voice interface that's going to do just really well. And I think that we will see a major stride of not necessarily a voice system being perfect at recognizing my voice, but good enough that we trust the AI to fill in the gaps in between and smooth it over. So it doesn't matter if it misses a word or two. And actually, I dictate a sentence and it actually puts a better sentence on paper than I was actually even dictating. But reducing our dependency on tapping on screens is going to be something that I think is going to be out there. And why? Because people are going to get information moving around faster that way. And I think we're going to see efforts to accelerate the input of information, which is going to make everything go around much faster.
I have been an early adapter to voice and have been sending voice notes over text messages for the last handful of years. I have already adapted to being able to work while I'm walking and be fleshing out ideas and running outlines while I'm in the park. So that's been just really cool to see the progression. My next question is just what's next for you? What are you working on?
So the big one is I have a book that's out digitally. It will be out very shortly in print, how to make AI useful for business, life, and society. It's really kind of moving the conversation from algorithms to really thinking about how the human and how we all connect to this system. We're living through an age where it's really AI's electricity moment. We've invented a new form of power, much like in 1919 when the electric ferry was the hype cycle of what could we do with electric. We are at that point with AI, and the argument that we have isn't what AI will change. It's what we're going to let it change. And the hope being that we really begin to use AI as an accelerant for human capability, amplifying human skills, much like the electric car, the computer, and the smartphone, helping us do what we do, just doing it better, and as opposed to allowing it to automate too much away. If we really focus on the human element, we begin to mitigate some of the big picture issues we're really worried about. We're interested in augmenting and supporting our workforce versus replacing our workforce. Using the AI as a tool to upskill people as opposed to the AI as a tool to replace people. Big societal pieces there.
So in your experience, or maybe you can think of a case study, who do you feel like is doing it right so far?
So I'm going to go back to where I spent best part of my career focus is automotive. And I'm going to use two different automotive brands as a case study here. GM Super Cruise, very much sold as a hands-free driving feature, very much built around the human side though. While it is very impressive automation technology, I'd really call it an automation system that the human is at the core feature of. The driver support systems are there to support attentive driving, while the automation is there fairly seamlessly driving hundreds of thousands, if not millions of miles with far fewer incidents than other technologies like autopilot, which, Tesla system, which is much more technologically focused, kind of left the human completely out of the equation early on, integrating it a little more now, but a technology first approach as opposed to a human centered approach. And we all have seen news media clips of incidents on our nation's road and globally occurring with autopilot, because that technology first doesn't account for, hey, humans are going to fail. Humans need to be supported. If we're going to take responsibility away from the human path planning and control decisions, we need to augment the human's responsibility and take responsibility to design that. So I think you have two fundamental philosophies there. Now, both still exist because the regulatory guardrails have allowed that, even though we've growing data to say one approach is clearly a little better than another approach, but we lack the political will to make the changes that are needed to learn and then adapt. We let the free market continue to run, but unfortunately, we don't make sure that free market is forced to learn what really meets societal needs reasonably. So what's key is both of these will be wrong over the long haul, and then we'll adapt even further to a new philosophy.
Such a key point there. And as we continue to learn to adapt, what do you think is the biggest key takeaway that you would want listeners of this podcast to walk away with about the future of AI and having a human first approach?
Yeah, so look, skill erosion and skill atrophy is going to occur as we automate more. So if AI does all your editing, you're not going to be such a good editor anymore. There's no question about that. We need to embrace that with automation, with the advancements of AI in integration in our lives, our skills as humans are going to change. We need to accept that our kids may not learn the same old-fashioned way that we did, but we need to set a vision on what we want those skills to become. So how do we want them using these tools to accelerate forward? Where do we want them using them? What's appropriate? What's not? We can't put the barriers up to say that we need to remain like we were 10, 20, or 30 years ago. And that's not life. Life evolves. So we need to accept that automation is going to change how we live, move, and work. But we need to set some visions on what we want that to be. And my book, co-authored with Magnus Lindqvist, a Swedish futurologist, really sets that we should set those barriers around helping us. And as soon as we begin to think about the value of AI and supporting and helping us, the value proposition goes through the roof.
Well, I can't imagine a better time for a book like that to come out. I'm so excited for its release soon. How can listeners connect and reach out and learn more about your book?
So two ways. First of all, book's available on Amazon. Second, connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm posting new stories and highlights all the time. I think it's really important to really begin to step away and say, look, technology is going to continue to evolve. That's great. I love it. but how that technology integrates with me and in society, and it augments and improves my life is really the important part.
Thank you so much, Bryan. That was a very empowering closing statement, and I like that point of view. I thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate you sharing more all about the work that you do.
Brooke, thanks for having me on.
All right, take care. Wow, I hope today's episode opened your mind to what's possible with AI. Do you have a cool use case on how you're using AI and want to share it? DM me, I'd love to hear more and feature you on my next podcast. Until next time, here's to working smarter, not harder. See you on the next episode of How I AI. Have you just started exploring AI and feel a bit overwhelmed? Don't worry, I've got you. Jump on a quick start audit call with me so you can walk away with a clear and personalized plan to move forward with more confidence and ease. Join my community of AI adopters like yourself. Plus, grab my free resources, including the AI Get Started guide, or try my How I AI Companion GPT. It pulls insights from my guest interviews along with global reports so you can stay ahead of the curve. Follow the link in the description below to get started.